it's like literally like this. I can't do it as good as Jordan, but like your feet go back. Anyway, that's me being a badass on The Boys.
So it's been such a cool thing because, like, for us, you know, I got to know you on You're the Worst, and obviously you've done The Boys, and I've watched a bunch of your movie stuff too, including big fan of Scare Me. And now you're on Broadway, and it's really exciting because I think you're so good with comedy. And there's certainly humor elements in Giant, but it's a very intense drama.
Yeah, but they're not mine.
Yeah.
I do not have the laughs in Giant.
So tell me about that.
I don't think of acting like comedically or dramatically as any different. But I do think that I am accidentally comedic. I thought I was very serious. In high school, I remember doing Helena from Midsummer Night's Dream as a deep drama, and people laughed so hard. And I was like, huh? Oh, yeah, on purpose. And that's when I realized that I could do comedy, not because I'm so funny, but because I can be so serious, and that's funny, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
But like, so they don't feel that different to me. It's like material that changes the thing.
Well, you know, it's Gene Wilder used to say that he didn't play he never played the comedy, which is like even watching like The Producers, which is a deeply silly movie. Like he's so committed to like don't take the blankie away.
That's the kind of comedy I can do. I work with some of the best improvers and stand-ups, and I'm always so envious, right? We all want the thing we don't have, and I don't have that skill set. I'm not even the person at the party telling the funniest story. Like, I'm just normal, and they're brilliant and charismatic, all these things. But I can invest in something, and that's usually when the comedy comes out for me. So I feel like they're very intertwined. But I do, once you get those laughs, it's very hard to give up. I do feel I have maybe 2 laughs in Giant, and if I miss them, I get very, very sad.
No, I get that. I forget what the line was now, but there was one point you said something and I cackled very loudly. And like people were with me on it, but like it was one of those ones where I'm like, I was definitely the loudest laugh in that moment. Okay.
Well, one of the most perfect jokes in the show does not get a laugh here in America, and it did in London.
Tell me about
and that's fascinating. There's a line, it's one of my favorite. Now, here's how I blow it. but there's just a very subtle little line, which is, offered me terms you couldn't imagine. And Elliot says, outside the lose. And John says, it's a dirty business. And that is a perfect joke.
Yeah.
And nobody gets it because we don't say
Lou here.
We don't say Lou here.
Yeah.
So people just don't, and it's rhythmically perfect. It's just one of those things, and I'm always, I take that, that's what I decide when they don't laugh at my jokes. I'm like, no, you just don't get it.
I will say there were chuckles at that last night, but it does take a minute because I think it's Americans going, they mean bathrooms. They mean bathrooms.
Yes, but it's just, it's a little tickle instead of a laugh.
The play, I knew it was about Roald Dahl, and kind of that was all I knew. I knew it did very well in the West End, and when I have the opportunity, because like I am a professional critic, I try to go in as blind as I can, which is rare. So that was pretty exciting.
Everybody should go in blind. Don't watch this interview.
Just kill it now. No, but it was very interesting because like there were certainly things I knew that the play talks about, but not to the degree the play talks about them.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about what it was, like how much of this were you aware of before? I mean, because you did this on the West End first, so before you got into the show. And I'm curious how doing the show may have changed how you think about the whole artist versus the art conversation.
I mean, I knew nothing about this before I read the play, and then felt stupid. I was like, oh, I should look this up, and of course went and researched. So it was pretty shocking to me, and then not shocking in the fact that we are discovering everybody is messed up. Like, I mean, all our heroes are complicated. So that was interesting. They had done it at the Royal Court before, and I think they had just won all the Oliviers when I came in, so that was intimidating.
Sure.
and I had a week of rehearsal in London to get into the play. So it was almost like a put-in versus an actual rehearsal process.
Wow.
Which is essentially what we did again on Broadway, except I had 3 days. But I'd already done it before. But the new cast members only had a week. So it very...
Yeah.
I hear if you have kids, like, you get stuff done. It's like, ask a busy person to do something, it'll get done.
Sure.
So in some ways, you just gotta go. So it was a really interesting experience that way. In terms of like art and artist, there's just too many at this point. And for me, I don't know why I can still listen to Michael Jackson, but I can't watch a Woody Allen movie. I think there's something about the, it's about when the art is also, I can't listen to R. Kelly. I can't, when the art is also about the thing that is, we've learned, it somehow like changes my experience of it. And also a person's face changes the experience. So Roald Dahl, and this is not an HR line because God knows that would not work. I don't have any idea how that line gets made. For me, it's just so intuitive that way where, so Roald Dahl, I can still read those books and it doesn't change my experience of them having that knowledge. But I think it's really different for everyone where that line moves to. I don't know if we should be rewriting things. I think people should just be don't engage with the art that upsets you in that way. People should engage with art that upsets them in general.
Yeah.
I think that's a misunderstanding. But in that way, that like if you don't want to support an artist, cool, don't.
Yeah, because part of what you're touching on was a few years ago, it came out that people have been changing Roald Dahl stories in an attempt, I guess, to make them a little more like modern or politically correct. These are poor words to describe it, but essentially more palatable, because as it became more clear to people that he held some deeply anti-Semitic views, looking at some of the things, including the witches as the play touches on, it all of a sudden is like, oh, is this an analogy?
Yeah.
And like that was interesting. I remember when the witches, when they did the remake with Anne Hathaway, that was when I first started becoming kind of aware of this, because like I read the books when I was a kid and then kind of hadn't thought about them.
Yeah.
And then like as a critic, people are being like, well, how are they going to handle the anti-Semitism in the witches? And I was very much like, wait, what? And so like that was where I kind of learned a little bit, but the show definitely taught me a lot more about it. And and for your character, who is in the very uncomfortable position of having to be like, this is how other people see this, but not just being the messenger, but also being a Jewish woman within the plot, like, you're not just the bearer of bad news, you're also a target for him on stage. And I'm curious about the emotional weight of both that role, and when you're playing against somebody who, I'm sure John Lithgow's a lovely person, but like, in that role, he is a bear. He is a bully.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I mean, it helps that John is just the kindest, most special human on the planet. So it doesn't, I don't know, I don't know if I carry it anywhere else. Like, it feels like it lives on stage for me, mostly. I mean, I'm tired afterwards. It's an exhausting show to do, but it's also, I don't know, it is all make-believe, right? Like, I do feel like stepping into those worlds is like stepping into Playland. And sometimes it's actually incredibly joyous, even in these horrible moments. I was saying the other day to Elliot and Rachel, I was like, sometimes I'm just on stage going, I'm so happy to be here with them. Like, you can just feel, when you're on stage with the talent that is on that stage and getting to go and like play, even if it's play that is really dark, can have a kind of joy. I know that sounds crazy.
No, totally.
I mean, people ask that with the boys too. I'm a vile, horrible person. And I mean, yes, there are moments when you're saying something awful that don't feel good. You're saying it to a human, right?
Yeah.
And that needs to be dealt with in a human way. But all the other stuff is like, I mean, I'm not really killing people doing this. It's fun. It's stupid. And so I feel a lot of joy doing the show too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we're living in a time now where people are, I think, constantly inundated with information. And so some of us want entertainment that is like just entertainment and whatever. And so there's this real intention by some artists to be like, oh, well, I don't do political things, or I don't talk about politics. And then this year alone, you're doing Giant, which deals with the anti-Semitism, but also the conversation about art versus the artist, and also kind of like the don't meet your heroes terror of it. Yeah. Of like, what if this person you've idealized is not those things, and how do you comprehend that? And I like that the show never, I think, softens Roald Dahl's actual opinions, but it also doesn't like give us a cozy answer of like, and here's how you cope with that. Like, I think it leaves us with that. But I'm curious from your perspective, between doing Giant and between doing The Boys, where you're like playing a Nazi, like how do these things play into both your performance and I guess like, you know, how you kind of let that go at the end of the day?
I mean, what's so exciting about Giant specifically is living in paradox, is living in two things being true at once. And I think that's where our culture is going wrong at the moment. I think that people have a really hard time sitting with paradox, partly because of social media and the need to have a strong opinion that only hits one thing and is very clear, because that's messaging, right? That's marketing. We're marketing ourselves. And so the marketing of self has become also the opinion is one thing and is only that.
And then we're getting that reflected back through an algorithm that's being like, choose A or B because this is the path we're putting down.
And I think that's really, really dangerous. I see social media at this point as a gun with a faulty trigger. Like, I don't know how to talk about anything nuanced on social media.
Sure.
And that feels like dangerous if that's where people are getting their news and their information. So to have to sit in Giant and listen to really well thought out arguments that, again, Dahl was an anti-Semite. But to have to sit through these arguments is really important. The other thing I would say is what's so fascinating is we don't talk about our politics backstage. We don't talk about our views, and we're not talking about that in the press either, both views and what the play is exactly, because that's what the art is for. You know, that's what the money's for. That's what the art is for. I really feel that on this one in a whole different way. So in some ways, I get artists saying like, I don't want to speak in that way. And then I also get, we should all be speaking. So again, both feel true. And in this situation, it's been a really interesting thing to let everybody have their own interpretation and to sit with these arguments and to come to their own conclusions. And I've had incredible private conversations with my friends about the different ideas that have come up in this show. And that feels like a miracle. It feels like an opening. And I'm hoping that people who come to the show, it's an opening for them to go have their own conversations around the issues that come up.
I think that makes sense because, like, as I said, like there's a topic that's specific to the film, or to the show, but it's also very much that, like, it's also dealing with, you know, what does complicity look like? What does speaking out look like? How are we identifying? And I thought it was so interesting because it's like, it's set in 1983. It is based on some real things in his life. And it is very timely today because it's like, you know, you could pull these conversations and make them about so many things that are going on right now, that it was really striking to me. And it was interesting kind of coming out of that and hearing people kind of buzz about between each other about, like,
every day the show changes based on what's happening in the news for me. Every day that something happens in the news, my experience of doing the show is different. And I assume the audience is different because of what's happening in the news. And that's what's so crazy about this play, is it's been done for a couple of years now. They did it at the Royal Court. What was that? A year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And then we did on the West End a year ago. And the play has held the news the entire time. And what it's different lines hit me differently because of what's happened. It's just, that's so cool. Like, when does that happen?
And like, theater's your first love too, right? So there's something about going on stage and having it, even though it's the same lines every night, having it feel different every night.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's part of the fun. I was trying to explain to a friend of mine who wants to do a play but has never done a play, and thinking about it. And they were like, I don't know if I can, isn't that boring? I was like, oh no, it's the best. It's also the worst. It's like, there is nothing more painful than feeling like you are failing on stage, which I would say is like, I'd say my average is, if I'm doing 8 shows a week, 3 feel amazing and the rest you want to die. But man, when they feel amazing, it's so good. It's such and it's because you have to constantly reinvest. It's like a long-term relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people don't understand what long-term love is these days, I think. Or if you haven't had it, it's just different. And it's a constant reinvestment in the same person. That's what a play is. It's a constant reinvestment in the same thing. And that's really special.
I love that. That actually reminds me of, I said to you before, I'm a big You're the Worst fan. It actually reminds me of that show, where that show's about 2 people who are so determined not to be in a relationship, but also can't deny that they like have a connection.
Yeah.
And I think as silly as that show is, and God, that show makes me laugh so much. I was rewatching it again this morning for prep. Like, I love when I get to just watch stuff I enjoy watching, and I'm like, it's research, don't talk to me. But like, there is something to that where it's like, it is about them constantly choosing each other. And that, like, as much as that show kind of toys with the idea of romance, like that is romantic.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I have a big romance with theater. I do. I feel like it's a real romance, and sometimes he treats me bad, but sometimes he treats me so good.
Is there anything right now? And not to be like pump up your competitions, but are there things on that you've seen lately that you're just like, wow?
I haven't seen much because
you're in a show.
No, there's stuff I want to see. I'm gonna go see Becky Shaw and Death of a Salesman because I have friends in it or directors, and a proof I want to see too. That looks really fun.
I know it closed now, but I know you saw Liberation.
I saw Liberation. Liberation was fantastic. Yeah, that was so special. I hate nudity on stage. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. That was the perfect use of nudity on stage. Like, what a beautiful, incredible scene.
I didn't understand. I knew what the show was basically about, but I didn't know there was nudity. So when they took all our phones and put them in the little pockets, I was like, well, I can't do my little playbill. I am very much that Insta girl. It's like, playbill shop, meh.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't get to do that. And I was so huffy about it for probably longer than this. Yeah. No, incredible. And then I was like, oh, okay. Because the only time that had happened to me before was Cabaret.
Yeah.
But I thought it was because Orville Peck wasn't wearing a mask. And so that was how, like, it didn't even occur to me it was the nudity in Cabaret. I was like, well, obviously he doesn't want people seeing his face. That's his whole thing. I was just like completely misreading.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I really don't like it normally. I find it hugely distracting. And I think there's like this idea of, it's the idea of bravery.
Yeah.
And often still under the male gaze. And this was like something else.
Yeah.
And so beautiful.
Yeah, I think it really recentered it. I think it was a really interesting way to get into that.
Yeah.
I am curious because like you've been a New York actor for a long time. You did theater here, and then I always like talking to people about their kind of first screen credits to kind of figure out how people got their feet wet. And I know you, in a very New York actor tradition, started on Law and Order.
Sure did.
Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Oh my God, it's so hard to get those. Anybody who is like waiting for their do they still audition in person at Chelsea Piers? You'd like sit in those rooms with 60 other women being like, why can't I get my 5 lines? It's so hard. But yes, so I finally got one. I remember being like, how did I get this? I don't know how I got this. Probably looked like someone's niece. I mean, you never know why you get a job. But I started with Law and Order. I actually weirdly, I think my first thing was Law and Order, and then I did like not a YouTube series, but like a web series that like you could click our clothing. It was like a proof of concept thing that sort of now makes sense.
Yeah.
Like was ahead of its time. And I remember there's a scene where I had to step over track that was laid, and you like see me go like, it's just not not familiar with the form.
I do love talking to actors about, because like on camera everything looks so elegant, and like, you know, I've done a little bit of production, I've done some set visits or whatever, so I'm a little more aware of it than like maybe your average moviegoer. But I love hearing the flip side of that. Like we had Tessa Thompson talking about Hedda, and there's that beautiful scene where she like floats toward the camera when she sees her lover, and she's like, yeah, I'm in a track and I'm trying to like,
oh yeah.
So what's an experience like that for you where like on camera it looks super cool, but the reality is like deeply silly?
Oh, all of The Boys is me being like, really? This looks good? Okay, thank you. Help. Or like when we fly, like when you see us shoot up and fly, we're just hopping on one foot. Or there's what it's called the Salmon Jump, which Jordan Myrie, who's on my new show, Vault Rising, is an excellent salmon jumper, but I don't even know how, it's like literally like this. I can't do it as good as Jordan, but like your feet go back. Anyway, that's me being a badass on The Boys.
I love that because it's like we watch it and we're like, oh, that's so cool. And I love the idea that at the end of the day, it's like it's really connecting you to this childish place of play of like, and I fly.
Oh my God. It's so funny when you're like in a fight scene with someone and you have to salmon jump towards them. So much laughing. Like the moment after is always ridiculous.
You're delivering like a withering line about how you're going to like burn them to their core.
Yes,
and then you're like, and salmon jump.
It's all so dumb and so great.
I love that.
Our special effects people are heroes.
I want to teach that one to my nieces. They're very into like behind the scenes stuff, and I taught them how to nap a slap the other day.
Oh yeah.
Oh, huge success.
Yeah.
They overtook the entire party. They were making every grown up get a fake slap in the face. It was pretty great. Highly recommend. Teach your children stage combat. That's so funny. I'm also just curious, are there any like places in New York that are like, when you come back here that you're like, I need to touch base here, whether that's like a restaurant or like a museum?
Mostly food. Augie's Counter, I crave there. They have this Bagaska scan, which that's just, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Cancel me. But that's one of my favorite restaurants. I love going to Thai Diner too, at like 5 o'clock, because that's the only time you can get in. Donna Cocktail Club, which is worker owned.
I did not realize that.
First worker owned cocktail bar in the city. There's a bunch of new like worker owned places popping up in the city. Banter's one of them too. Anyway, so it's mostly like me wanting good food. And then, thrifting, if I'm going to be totally honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, because that's the thing. I was at South by recently, and I kept, I'm a very, like, I like fashion, I like things.
Yeah.
And so when I see something that I like on someone, I'm like, oh, I really like that. Yeah. And everybody I said that to at South by, they were like, oh, thrift. It was all across the board.
I know, it's gotten real cool. So annoying.
Makes it harder
and
to
you go to a
find
thrift
stuff.
store and you like see the people coming in to resell. I'm like, more power to you. Like our vintage store, I'd rather people go buy, beautiful vintage from small businesses. But it's gotten very hip. I tried to go to the Goodwill bins, and I was like, why are there all these like 20-year-old boys like fighting over Carhartt? It's a very different world than the world I grew up in.
No, 100%. It was the Vinnie de Paul, which is St. Vincent de Paul, but it's like a basement of a church, and it just had everything. And like, I remember I would go and get like literally like army fatigues and then like a flapper dress in the same visit. Yeah, it was really the duality of me as a person.
You used to be able to get crazy cool stuff.
I do have one more quick question for you, just on I've heard you talk about this on another podcast, but also like Carrie Coons talked about this, where it's a crazy thing now where it's so hard to get work that to be in New York theater, it kind of helps who already have been on a popular TV show right now.
Oh, yeah. The only reason I started doing TV, I mean, besides the fact that I was broke, but it was because I wanted to do Shakespeare in the Park, and I thought, oh, I do Shakespeare, and I was like, oh, got it. You got to be famous to do that. So I thought, oh, I'll go get famous. I want to be the person that people are like, she's all right, but oh, she's on TV.
The dream.
The dream. Mediocrity turned into success. Failing upwards.
Well, for the record, I really thought you were great in the show. You have this big speech right before the intermission, and like then the curtains went dark, and I was kind of relieved because I just needed a moment to breathe.
Yeah.
So like, congratulations.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming by.